Nick grew up in a small town in a family of nurses and furniture factory workers. He had always dreamed of being a soldier. However, his criminal record from his teenage years didn't let him realize his dream. His family lived fairly modestly, but had enough money for the essentials. His parents were good people and raised their children well. Nick had a younger sister, Lauren. All of Nick's issues were from stupidity. Once, Nick befriended a boy who came from a family with a less than good reputation. His father had been in prison many times for theft, and his older brother was in the local gang. Many kids were scared of him and tried to avoid him, while he thought he was extraordinarily cool. Nick also thought he was cool, so when the boy suggested stealing a radio out of a car, Nick agreed. Nick knew it was wrong and he shouldn't, but he didn't want to look like a coward in front of his new friend. It was hushed up, luckily. His parents paid for the damages, and considering they were good people with an excellent reputation, the victim decided to retract the charges to not ruin Nick's life. Nick didn't do anything with that boy again. His second offense was even dumber. So the new girl in class, Sierra, whose family had just moved to the city, went to him, and he fell in love hard, but she didn't return his feelings. One time at the grocery, Sierra bravely suggested sneaking a box of candy out of the store. Nick wanted to impress Sierra, so he was the only one in the group who tried to do it. It ended poorly, and he got a mark on his record. And instead of being impressed, Sierra twisted it around. "If I told you to jump off a bridge, would you do it?" she said. Nick decided then and there he wouldn't do anything like that again. He also swore not to think about Sierra. He fought against his feelings for her until graduation. He moved to a new city right after graduation, so he wouldn't see her again. Considering he had no education, he worked odd jobs. He only made enough for the bare necessities. He saw a girl at a grocery store one day. Her long, fiery red hair and freckled face drew his eyes. He asked her out, and she agreed. Her name was Kelly, and Nick really liked her. They started to call each other and then go out on dates after that day. Now, one day, while visiting his parents, Nick asked his sister if she had heard anything about Sierra. She said that Sierra got married to a man much older and moved to a new city. When Nick got back, he proposed to Kelly immediately. She was surprised, but said yes because she really loved Nick. Kelly's parents asked her not to rush since they didn't know each other well yet. But Nick convinced them he really loved their daughter and he was nothing to worry about. Nick's parents were also cautious about this, but only because their son had achieved absolutely nothing yet in life and had no money saved to pay for a wedding. However, Nick said they didn't need much. They would have a modest wedding with only close friends and family. Kelly and Nick got married. Nick got his driver's license and began working as a taxi driver. Kelly worked at the grocery store. They weren't rich, but they got along. Nick's sister finished college, got married, and moved in with her husband in another state, very far from their parents. Nick's mom got sick soon and unexpectedly died. Nick's father got sick after losing his wife and needed a lot of help. Nick and Kelly decided to go back to his hometown and live in his parents' house to take care of his father. He died 6 months later. Kelly and Nick decided to stay there. They had a daughter, Evelyn, a year later. Life marched on. They loved their daughter. She was smart, beautiful, and praised by the teachers at school. When she turned 15, her parents threw her an amazing party. Evelyn invited her friends over, and Nick invited his sister Lauren, who had 3 kids then. Kelly set the party table. During the party, Lauren called Nick aside to talk in the kitchen. "You won't believe who I met outside the hotel," she said happily. Nick looked at her surprised. "Sierra, do you remember her? I think you were head over heels for her all throughout school. Well, it turns out she lives here in her parents' house with her son. She asked me about you." She finished. She then saw her brother's face and wondered why she told them about this at all. First, not the whole time in school, just half. Second, it doesn't matter anymore. Nick made a face to show he didn't care, but this news flooded him with memories. Kelly came in. She looked at her husband, lost in thought, and said, "Dear, what happened?" "Nothing, everything's fine. Lauren was just telling me she ran into an old friend." Life went on after the party. But Evelyn was growing up and started noticing that something changed in their family. Her father was staying late at work or took night shifts, but she kept hearing her mother tell him that he was working more, but they had less money for some reason. She also heard her mother crying in their bedroom one day. Evelyn started paying her father's strange behavior more attention. He took phone calls often, and when he saw her mom was asleep, he went outside somewhere. One time she couldn't take it and decided to follow him. The next time he waited for Kelly to fall asleep, Nick got his stuff and went somewhere. Evelyn followed quietly. There was a small guest house in their yard. Evelyn's grandfather built it when her father and Lauren had their own families, in case they would all get together. Evelyn approached quietly and heard whispers. She got closer, and what she heard shocked her. "I can't hide like this anymore. I want to be with you all the time," she heard her father say. Evelyn opened the door and went in. What she saw floored her. Her father was hugging some other woman. Evelyn couldn't believe he could do this to her mom. She felt nauseous. He looked at her distraught and didn't know what to say. "I came here for nothing. Go fix this with your daughter," she said. It was Sierra. After Lauren told Nick about her, he couldn't stop thinking about her and finally decided to visit. Her husband left her, and she had to go back to her parents with her son. She was just as beautiful as before and made Nick feel the same things from school. He still loved her and wanted her. That's when their affair began. When he said he took on night shifts to earn more, he was actually spending the night in a hotel with Sierra. He couldn't afford to keep paying for hotels, so he started to invite her to his guest house when his wife was asleep. He knew this was wrong to Kelly and wanted to tell her everything, but his daughter did first. Evelyn ran into the home crying hysterically. Kelly woke up and ran to her. "What happened, sweetie? Why are you crying?" she said. Evelyn told her mother everything in tears. Kelly actually expected to hear something like this, so she wasn't surprised. She had noticed that her husband had become distant and cold, and they weren't intimate anymore, so the news simply confirmed her suspicions. But she was more worried about her daughter's reaction. She saw that her daughter was traumatized. Kelly tried to calm Evelyn down and told her that things happen in life. Despite everything, Nick loved her, and even if he was a bad husband, he was still an excellent father. But Evelyn didn't want to hear it, and she hated her father. When Nick came in, Evelyn was asleep and Kelly was waiting in the kitchen. He apologized and said he didn't want to hurt her. He didn't expect he'd still have feelings for her and knew he couldn't live without her. Kelly's only issue was how could he dare to bring another woman into their home? What Evelyn saw destroyed her, and he had to talk to her and fix it. Kelly and Nick got divorced. Even though it was his parents' home, he left it to Kelly and Evelyn and moved in with Sierra. He was happy with her. But despite his attempts, Evelyn wouldn't talk to him. She couldn't forgive him. Even her mother's attempts to convince her did nothing. It was seriously traumatizing for the teenager, and it would affect her whole life. Even after she graduated from high school and university, she didn't talk to her father again.